The first swing of the sledgehammer never landed. It hovered in the air, frozen mid-arc, because the man holding it stared past the cracked doorway and whispered, "Boss, there's someone inside." Adrian Cole stood at the bottom of the porch steps, his expensive shoes already dusted gray. He had told himself this would be simple. One last look. A clean break. The house had been empty for years, a rotting shell at the end of a street that had moved on without him. He had the permits. He had the crew. He had a schedule printed in neat boxes. But now, through the open front door, a weak line of light moved across the hallway like a candle being carried, and then a child's cough echoed from somewhere upstairs, dry, small, careful, like the child was trying not to be heard. Adrian's chest tightened in a way he did not recognize. He took one step forward, and the porch boards groaned under his weight, the same old sound from his childhood. For a second, his mind tried to say, "This is impossible. The house has been abandoned. No one lives here." The cough came again, then a woman's voice, low and tense. "Leo, stay back. If you enjoy stories that feel real and stay with you after they end, let's grow this channel together. Please subscribe and enjoy our interesting story." Adrian's crew waited behind him, quiet now, a line of men in work boots and hard hats, their breath puffing in the cold. The foreman, Gus, lifted a hand as if to ask, "Should I call it in? Should we step back?" His eyes darted to Adrian's face, trying to read what kind of man he was when plans went wrong. Adrian didn't answer. He moved forward, slow, palms open, as if approaching a frightened animal. The doorway still had the same split down the frame. The old brass number plate was gone, leaving two dark holes where screws used to be. The hallway smelled like damp wood and something else, faint soap, like someone had tried to fight the rot with a sponge and hope. Dust floated in the pale morning light, drifting down like tiny flakes. "Hello," Adrian called, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. Silence. Then a soft shuffle above, a floorboard answering, loud in the empty house. Adrian stepped inside. The air was colder than outside, as if the house hoarded winter in its walls. His eyes adjusted, and he saw what he hadn't expected. The floor near the entry had been swept, not clean, but swept enough to show a path. A pair of small sneakers sat neatly beside a pair of worn flats. On the hallway table, still there, the same table his mother used to set keys on, there was a plastic bottle of water and a folded towel. He climbed one step up the stairs and stopped, listening. A child's face appeared at the top landing, just for a second. Wide eyes, dark curls. The child froze, then disappeared like a shadow. "Hey," Adrian said quickly. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt anyone." A woman stepped into view. She looked no older than her early 30s, but tiredness added years to her eyes. Her hair was pulled back tight. Not styled, just contained. She wore a heavy sweater that had been washed too many times, the sleeves slightly too short. In one hand, she held a flashlight. In the other, she held the child's wrist not harshly, but with the firm grip of someone who had learned that the world could turn dangerous in seconds. "Who are you?" she demanded. Adrian swallowed. His throat felt scraped raw, as if he'd breathed dust for hours. "My name is Adrian Cole." The woman's grip on the flashlight tightened. "What do you want?" He glanced past her. Behind her, the upstairs hallway was darker, but he could make out something strange, blankets pinned against one doorway like a curtain. And there, just beyond, a small lamp glowing on a low table, as if someone had built a tiny, careful pocket of living inside the ruin. Adrian looked back at the crew through the doorway. Gus was already pulling out his phone, his thumb hovering. Adrian raised a hand. "Not yet. I own this house," Adrian said, and hated how that sounded the moment it left his mouth. "I came today because the crew is scheduled to start demolition." The child's eyes went even wider. He looked up at the woman, then back at Adrian, as if trying to decide whether he should run. The woman's jaw hardened, but her voice stayed controlled. "We didn't break anything," she said quickly, like she had practiced his line. "We found it like this." The back door was already off the hinges. "We've been careful." Adrian's mind fought to keep up. There were people living here. A child living here. In his old house. In the house he had tried so hard to forget that it had become just a file in a cabinet. A deed. A line on a spreadsheet. "How long?" he asked before he could stop himself. The woman hesitated, measuring him. "Long enough," she said. "Please don't call anyone. Just give us time. 1 week, 2. We'll be gone." Adrian looked at her hands. Her knuckles were dry and cracked. The flashlight had tape wrapped around the handle. The child's sweatshirt collar was frayed, but clean. And behind the fear in both of them, Adrian saw something else. White. A stubborn refusal to beg. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She seemed suspicious of the softness. "Mara," she said. "And this is my son, Leo." Leo didn't speak. He pressed closer to her side, but his eyes stayed locked on Adrian's face, studying him like a stranger on a bus who might turn into trouble. Adrian nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Mara, Leo, I'm going to ask you something and you can say no. Can I come up? Just to talk. I won't bring anyone else. Mara's eyes flicked down the stairs, where the crew waited like a wall. She looked at Adrian's coat, the crisp collar, the clean hands. Then she looked at Leo, and her face tightened with decision. One step, she said, and stay where I can see you. Adrian climbed, careful to place his weight lightly, remembering where the boards used to creak when he was a boy sneaking to the kitchen at night. The house answered anyway, each step groaning under him as if protesting the return of someone it didn't trust. Upstairs, the air smelled faintly of boiled rice and something herbal, like a teabag steeping too long. Mara led him to the room at the end of the hall, the old master bedroom. The door was gone, replaced by blankets pinned to the frame. She pulled them aside and motioned him in. Inside, the room had been transformed. A mattress lay on the floor, covered in a clean sheet. A small camping stove sat near the window, with a pot and a plastic bowl. A stack of books was lined against the wall, with a notebook on top. In the corner, a cheap fan sat unplugged, and on the windowsill, an empty jar held a few dried flowers, like someone wanted beauty even when there was no reason for it. Adrian's eyes landed on the wall near the closet. The child's drawing was taped to two stick figures holding hands in front of a house with a big sun above it. The house had a crooked roof, but the sun had a smile. Mara watched him take it in, her expression guarded. We're not criminals, she said, as if she could read his thoughts. We didn't have anywhere else. Adrian's mind jumped to words like shelter, services, reports. But those words were hard and sharp. He saw Leo's eyes again, and he knew those words would turn into fear. What happened? Adrian asked instead. Mara looked away, her gaze landing on the window. Outside, the backyard was a mess of weeds and broken fence slats. Beyond the fence, the neighborhood looked like a patchwork of survival: old cars, peeling paint, laundry lines. It's not one thing, she said quietly. It's everything. Rent goes up, work gets cut, someone gets sick. A job promises hours and then gives you nothing. A landlord smiles and then changes the locks. Adrian heard the steady anger under her voice, not directed at him exactly, but at a system he had benefited from without ever looking too closely at the cost. He cleared his throat. How old are you, Leo? He asked, trying to include the boy without forcing him. Leo hesitated. 10, he said, almost a whisper. Mara tightened her hand on his wrist, then let go like she realized she was holding too hard. Leo rubbed his arm, eyes down. Adrian nodded. Okay. Then, he took a breath. Mara, today was not supposed to be like this. I didn't know anyone was here. I can't just pretend I didn't see you. Mara's shoulders stiffened. So you'll call the police? No, Adrian said quickly. No, I'm not going to do that. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then what? Adrian's thoughts raced. There were legal realities. Liability. This city. The crew. A kid living in an unsafe building. The roof alone could collapse in the wrong storm. He knew that. He also knew what happened when authorities got involved. Questions. Forms. The possibility of separating a child from a parent if someone decided the living situation was dangerous. He did not want to be the reason for that. I need to pause the demolition, Adrian said slowly. At least for today. And we need to talk about what you need, because this house isn't safe, even if it feels quiet. Mara's mouth tightened. We know it's not safe, she said, but it's safer than sleeping outside. Safer than the places we were offered. What places? Adrian asked. Mara's laugh was short and humorless. Rooms with strangers. Rooms where men don't take no as an answer. Places where you have to keep your shoes on in bed because your feet might touch something you don't want to think about. Leo's face went red, and he stared at the floor. Adrian felt a hot flush of shame. Not because he had caused those places, but because he had lived his life far enough away from them that he could pretend they were rare. I'm not going to force you into something worse, Adrian said. But I can help you find a safer place than this. Mara looked at him as if trying to catch the hidden string attached to the offer. Why? She asked. Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it. He could say because he was rich and it was easy. He could say because he felt guilty. He could say because he used to live here and the house still had his fingerprints in the paint and his mother's voice in the walls. But none of those reasons would make her trust him. So he told the simplest truth he could. Because there's a child here, Adrian said. And because I came to tear this place down, and I don't want the last thing this house does to hurt someone. Mara studied him. Her eyes softened for half a second, then hardened again like she remembered softness was dangerous. I don't want pity, she said. And I don't want to owe you. You won't, Adrian said. That's easy for you to say, she replied. Adrian nodded. All right, it is. So we'll do it your way. We'll make a plan that keeps you in control. Mara looked surprised by that. She didn't relax, but her shoulders dropped a fraction. Give me a day, Adrian said. I'll call the crew off. I'll figure out what options exist without turning your life upside down. And tomorrow, I come back if you want, if you say yes. Mara's lips pressed together. She looked at Leo. Leo looked at her. Then he looked at Adrian and asked, voice small, are you really going to knock it down? Adrian's heart squeezed. He imagined the boy watching walls fall, watching the only quiet place he had vanish into dust. That was the plan, Adrian admitted. But plans can change. Leo's eyes flicked to the drawing on the wall, then back to Adrian's face, like he was trying to see if adults ever kept their words. Mara nodded once, sharply, as if the nod cost her something. Tomorrow, she said. In the morning, and don't bring them inside. I won't, Adrian promised. When Adrian walked back downstairs, the crew's eyes followed him, questions silent on their faces. Gus stepped forward. We got someone squatting, he asked. Adrian looked at the front yard, at the bare winter grass, at the house's sagging porch like an old spine. He didn't answer the question directly. No demolition today, Adrian said. Pack up. Gus blinked. Boss, we're on the clock. City inspectors scheduled later. If we don't, I'll handle it, Adrian said, and his voice left no room for argument. Gus hesitated, then nodded. He turned and began giving orders. Men rolled up cords. Tools clinked into boxes. The sound that was supposed to be destruction became departure. Adrian stayed on the porch a moment longer. He glanced up at the upstairs window. The blanket moved slightly, and for an instant, Leo's face appeared again, half hidden behind fabric. The boy watched as if Adrian's next move would decide whether the world was safe. Adrian lifted his hand and gave a small wave. It felt ridiculous, too gentle for a day like this. But Leo stared, then lifted his hand slowly and waved back, a tiny motion like a leaf trembling in wind. On the drive back to his office, Adrian barely noticed the traffic. The city blurred past, gray and busy. His hand stayed tight on the steering wheel. At every stoplight, he saw the house again, the swept hallway, the towel on the table, the jar of dried flowers. And the question that kept clawing at him was not, why were they there? It was, why hadn't he thought this could happen? Adrian's life was built on clean lines. He lived in a high-rise where the elevator smelled faintly of lemon polish and quiet money. His kitchen counters never held anything that didn't belong there. His calendar was filled with meetings, numbers, presentations, and decisions. He had built his wealth by buying forgotten places and turning them into something profitable. He told himself he was improving neighborhoods, creating jobs, building modern living. He told himself a lot of things, and most days, those things were easier to believe than the alternative. But the old house was different. It wasn't just a property. It was where his mother had counted coins at the kitchen table, where he had done homework under a flickering light, where he had listened to arguments through thin walls and promised himself that one day he would never feel trapped again. He had left at 18 with a duffel bag and a scholarship letter and anger like fuel. He never came back. His mother died 2 years later, and he missed the funeral because he was in the middle of finals, and because he didn't know how to walk back into that neighborhood without feeling like he had failed. After that, he sent money sometimes, through people who knew people. He made sure the taxes were paid. He bought the house when it went into foreclosure, quietly, through paperwork, and then he never stepped inside again, until today. Back at the office, his assistant, Nina, met him at the elevator with her tablet already in hand. Nina was efficient, calm, and younger than Adrian by a decade, but she had the sharp eyes of someone who noticed what mattered. You're early, she said, then looked up at his face and paused. What happened? Adrian walked past her into his office and shut the door. The room smelled like coffee and new leather, a scent that usually made him feel grounded. Today, it felt like a costume. There were people in the house, Adrian said. Nina's eyebrows rose. Squatters, a woman and her son, Adrian said. They've been living there. Nina's expression shifted, the practical gears turning. We need to notify legal. Liability is huge. If that building collapses, I know, Adrian said. He rubbed his forehead, feeling the beginning of a headache. But I'm not calling the police on a mother and a kid. Nina's lips pressed together. She wasn't cold, but she was realistic. The inspector's appointment is at 3. If we don't proceed, we'll need an extension, and the crew will bill for downtime. I'll pay it, Adrian said. Nina studied him. Adrian, are you okay? He laughed once, quietly. No, he said. I'm not. Nina lowered her tablet slightly, just enough to show she was listening, not just managing. Adrian took a breath and told her the basics. The child, the blankets, the swept hallway. The way the woman looked like she had fought 100 quiet battles and was ready for 100 more. When he finished, Nina was silent for a moment. Then she said, "You're going back tomorrow." What do you plan to do?" Nina asked. Adrian stared at the window. Down below, people walked with coffee cups and backpacks, the world moving fast like it always did. He didn't know how to explain that for the first time in years, his money felt small compared to a child's cough in an empty house. "I plan to find them a safer place," Adrian said, "without tearing their lives apart." Nina nodded slowly. "Then we need to do it carefully," she said, "because if anyone reports a child living in an unsafe building, it triggers an automatic response. Social services, school checks. They don't mean harm, but the process can be harsh." Adrian's stomach tightened. "Exactly." Nina tapped her tablet, thinking. "I can pull a list of local family shelters and transitional housing programs," she said. "Ones with private rooms. Some require referrals, some have wait lists. And we should talk to a housing advocate, someone who knows how to navigate without panic." Adrian looked at her, grateful in a way he hadn't expected. "Do that," he said. And he hesitated. "Don't call legal yet. Not unless we have to." Nina gave him a look that said she understood the risk. Then she nodded. "Okay, but we do need to pause the demolition officially. I'll call the city inspector and request a postponement due to a safety concern. No details, just safety." Adrian exhaled slowly. "Thank you." That night, Adrian didn't sleep well. He lay in his wide, quiet bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the building's heating system. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Leo's face in the window. He thought about what it meant to be 10 years old and already know how to disappear when dogs came near. In the morning, Adrian drove back to the neighborhood alone. He stopped at a small grocery store on the way, the kind of place with narrow aisles and handwritten price signs. He bought basics: bread, fruit, canned soup, tea, a small jar of honey. He hesitated in the blanket aisle and chose a thick one, gray and soft. He bought a pack of batteries for the flashlight. He stood too long in front of a shelf of children's toothbrushes, then picked one in a bright color and felt ridiculous again. When he arrived, the street looked even more tired in daylight. Paint peeled from porches. A stray cat slipped under a car. Someone's radio played faint music through an open window. Adrian parked and walked up to the house with the grocery bags in both hands. The front door was shut now. The porch board creaked under his foot, and he paused, suddenly unsure of himself. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, softer. "Mara," he called. "It's Adrian. I came alone." Silence stretched. Then the locks moved more than one, improvised and careful. The door opened just a crack, enough for Mara's eyes to appear. She looked at his hands full of bags, and her gaze hardened immediately. "No," she said. "We talked about pity." Adrian held up one hand as much as he could. "Not pity," he said. "Just groceries. It's cold, and I brought batteries. For the flashlight." Mara stared at him. Behind her, Adrian could hear a faint sound, pages turning, like Leo was trying to stay busy so he wouldn't listen. "You can leave them," Mara said. On the porch, Adrian nodded. He set the bags down carefully. The porch smelled like damp wood and old leaves. He stepped back. Mara opened the door a bit wider, still keeping her body between Adrian and the inside. Her eyes flicked to the groceries, then to his face. "You said you'd come with options," she said. "I did," Adrian said. "But first, can we talk outside? I don't want to be inside." "I know you asked." Mara's jaw tightened. After a moment, she stepped onto the porch and pulled the door mostly closed behind her, leaving it unlocked but controlled. She wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. The sweater stretched thin at the elbows. Adrian stood a few feet away, keeping distance like he was approaching a skittish line. He could smell coffee on his own breath, and he suddenly worried he looked too polished, too clean. "I spoke with someone who knows housing programs," Adrian said. "Not an official, not anyone who can trigger reports, just a person who helps families find safer housing." Mara's eyes stayed sharp. "Oh, a housing advocate," Adrian said. "Through a community center across town." Mara's gaze narrowed. "And you told them about us?" "I didn't give names," Adrian said quickly. "I asked general questions. What options exist for a mother and child who need privacy and safety?" Mara hesitated, and Adrian saw the smallest crack in her suspicion. She wasn't unreasonable. She was cautious. "There are two possibilities," Adrian continued. "One is a transitional program that has private rooms for families. It's not perfect. There's a curfew, and you have to meet with a caseworker once a week, but the rooms lock, and it's clean." Mara's mouth tightened. "And the other?" Adrian took a breath. The other is I can pay for a small apartment, not in my name, in yours, through a program that acts as a buffer so it's not you owing me. It would be a short-term lease 3 months while you stabilize. You would need proof of income or help getting it, but the advocate said they can work with that. Mara stared at him like she was trying to find the trap. I don't have enough money for deposits, she said. You wouldn't need to, Adrian said. It would be covered. Mara's eyes flashed. Covered by who? By me, Adrian admitted, then added quickly, but not as a handout, and as a way to keep Leo safe. We can set it up through the advocate, so it's clear. Boundaries. Mara looked away, swallowing. For a moment, her expression softened into something close to grief. Then it hardened again, like she remembered softness was a luxury. You don't know what it's like, she said quietly, to accept help, and then find out the help comes with a price. Adrian nodded. I don't, he said. But I know what it's like to feel trapped, to feel like your choices are all bad. And I don't want to add to that. Mara's eyes flicked to the street, as if she feared someone might be watching. Where do you live? She asked suddenly. Adrian blinked. Downtown, he said. Mara gave a small, bitter smile. Of course. Adrian felt the sting, but he didn't argue. He had chosen that distance. He had built it like a wall. I'm not asking you to trust me fully, Adrian said. I'm asking you to consider a safer place than this, and I'm asking you to tell me what you need so I don't do it wrong. Mara's breath came out in a slow cloud. We need time, she said. We need a place where no one can just walk in and decide what happens to us. Adrian nodded. Okay. And we need to stay together, Mara said, her voice tightening. No one takes him from me. Do you understand? Adrian's chest tightened. He understood. Yes, he said. I understand. A small sound came from inside Leo's footsteps, cautious. The door opened a crack, and Leo peeked out. Mara turned her head slightly. Leo, she said, go back inside. Leo didn't move. He stared at the groceries on the porch, then at Adrian. Did you bring oranges? He asked. Adrian looked at the bag, then smiled faintly. Yes, he said. I did. Leo's eyes lit for a second. Then he caught himself and looked down, like he didn't want to show too much hope. Mara's face softened despite herself, and Adrian saw it how exhausted she was from being strong every minute. Adrian reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded paper. This is the advocate's name and number, he said, holding it out. You can call her yourself. You don't have to talk through me. You can ask questions. You can decide. Mara hesitated, then took the paper with 2 fingers like it might burn her. What about the demolition? She asked. Adrian glanced at the house, at the sagging roofline, at the windows like tired eyes. I postponed it, he said. I told the city there was a safety issue. I can buy us some time. Not forever, but time. Mara's shoulders dropped slightly, relief flickering. Then her eyes narrowed again. And what do you want in return? She asked. Adrian's throat tightened. He wanted to say, I want to stop feeling like a stranger to my own past. I want to know what it feels like to be needed for something real. I want to fix what I broke by leaving. But those were heavy truths. They would sound like demands. So he said, I want you to be safe. Adrian replied. That's it. Mara studied him for a long time. Then she nodded once. Okay, she said quietly. We'll call. Adrian exhaled, a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He nodded. I'll go, he said. I won't come back unless you ask me to, or unless you call. Mara's eyes flicked to the groceries again, and she gave a small, reluctant nod. Thank you, she said, the words stiff, like she wasn't used to saying them. Adrian walked down the porch steps and back to his car. When he looked back, he saw Leo picking up the bag carefully and carrying it inside like it was something precious. For the rest of that week, Adrian tried to do what he had promised help without controlling. It was harder than he expected. The first day, Mara didn't call. Adrian told himself not to panic. The second day, Nina told him the city inspector agreed to postpone for 10 days, but warned that extensions went endless. He said it's a hazard, Nina reported, and he's not wrong. Adrian knew. Every time the wind picked up, he imagined shingles peeling off. Every time it rained, he imagined water finding new cracks. On the 3rd day, Adrian received a message from an unknown number. Simple. This is Mara. We called. The advocate can meet tomorrow. Library. 10 a.m. You can come if you want, but don't talk for me. Adrian stared at the message, then typed back, I'll be there. I won't talk for you. The next morning, the library smelled like paper and quiet warmth. Adrian arrived early and sat at a small table near the back where the light was softer. He watched people come and go, parents with toddlers, students with backpacks, an elderly man reading a newspaper slowly like time was something to taste. When Mara arrived, she looked different in public, still tired, still guarded, but less cornered. Leo walked beside her, a small backpack on his shoulders. He clutched a book against his chest like a shield. An older woman approached them, short hair, sensible coat, kind eyes that didn't push. Mara, she asked gently. Mara nodded. Yes, I'm Sela, the woman said. I'm glad you came. Sela's voice had that rare quality of being calm without being soft. She shook Mara's hand, then glanced at Leo. And you must be Leo, she said. Leo nodded, eyes cautious. Sela sat with them. Adrian remained quiet, as promised. He listened as Sela explained options with patient detail. This program has private rooms, Sela said, but you'll need to provide ID. You'll have intake interviews. Some questions will feel invasive. I'm not going to lie. That's part of the process. Mara's jaw tightened. They ask if I'm a bad mother, she said flatly. Sela didn't flinch. They ask questions to assess safety, she said. Sometimes the system forgets it's talking to human beings, but there are ways to navigate, and I can be there with you. Mara looked down at her hands, fingers twisting together. I don't want him taken, she whispered. Sela leaned forward slightly. Then we build stability step by step, she said. We document, we show effort, we get you into a safe room quickly. We enroll Leo in school consistently. We connect you with work support. It's not instant, but it's real. Adrian's chest tightened at the words, step by step. That was the part no one talked about in boardrooms. The slow work, the patience, the dignity. Sela glanced at Adrian finally. And you are, she asked. Adrian hesitated, then said, Adrian, I own the property they're staying in. Sela's eyes narrowed slightly, not suspicious, but careful. I see, she said. Then you should understand that anything we do needs to protect them, not just solve a problem for you. Adrian nodded, accepting the sharp truth. I do, he said. Sela continued. There's also a short-term rental assistance program, but it requires a lease, a landlord willing to work with the program, and sometimes a co-signer. It's bureaucratic. It's slow. Mara's eyes flicked to Adrian, then away. Adrian said quietly, if co-signing is needed, I can do that through Sela's program, not directly. Sela studied him. That could work, she said carefully, but we need boundaries clear. Mara looked at Adrian, her eyes sharp. You said you wouldn't control, she reminded him. I won't, Adrian said. If you don't want this option, we don't do it. Mara swallowed. I want a door that locks, she said quietly. I want him to have a bed that isn't on the floor. I want to stop listening for footsteps at night. Leo stared at his book, but his hands tightened around it. Sela nodded. Then we aim for a small apartment, she said. We'll start applications today. They spent 2 hours filling forms. Mara's handwriting was neat, but tense. Sela guided without taking over. Adrian sat beside them, silently absorbing each signature, each checkbox, each piece of life reduced to paperwork. When it was done, Sela gathered the papers. We'll need time, she said, but we can get you into a safe transitional room within 48 hours while we secure the apartment. Mara's shoulders sagged as if relief was a weight. 48 hours, she repeated. Sela nodded. You'll have a private room. You'll share a kitchen with other families. There will be rules, but it's safe. And Leo stays with you. Mara's eyes filled, but she blinked hard and looked away, refusing to let tears fall in public. Adrian watched her, feeling something inside him shift, something that wasn't guilt. Exactly. It was respect. And a sharp awareness of how much strength it took to accept help without collapsing. When they left the library, Leo lingered near Adrian's side for a moment, then asked quietly, Is it true you used to live there? Adrian's throat tightened. Yes, he said. Leo looked up at him, curious now, not just afraid. Did you have a room? He asked. Adrian almost smiled. I did, he said. It was smaller than it felt. Leo frowned. Which one? Adrian pointed gently. Upstairs. The one at the end. That used to be my mother's room, he said. Mine was across the hall. The one with the broken closet door. Leo's eyes widened slightly. That's where I keep my backpack, he said softly. Adrian's chest tightened again. He imagined the boy's backpack sitting in the same corner where Adrian had once hidden his school books, time folding back on itself, not in a magical way, but in the quiet repetition of need. Mara watched the exchange, wary, protective. Adrian held her gaze. We'll do the next step, he said, whatever that is. Mara nodded once. We'll see, she said, not a promise. Not a rejection, just the truth. 2 days later, Sella called Adrian with an update. We got them into the transitional program, she said. They moved in last night. Adrian exhaled, relieved. Good, he said. Thank you. They are safe. Sella continued, but the next step will be hard. The apartment search, the paperwork, the waiting. Mara is proud. She will test boundaries. Adrian almost smiled. I can handle proud, he said. Sella paused. Pride is not the danger, she said. Control is. Yours, or anyone's. Adrian's smile faded. I understand, he said quietly. That evening, Adrian drove to the old house alone, not because he had to, but because he couldn't stop thinking about it. The house sat quiet, darker now without the lamp glow in the window. For the first time in days, it looked truly abandoned again. Adrian unlocked the front door with a key he had kept for years, and touched in a drawer. The lock stuck, then gave with a familiar click. He stepped inside, and the air hit him cold, damp, heavy. Without people, the place felt sad in a different way. The swept hallway still showed faint marks. The towel was gone. The jar of dried flowers had been taken. All that remained were traces, indentations in dust where shoes had sat, a faint smell of tea, a small scuff mark on the wall where a child's shoulder had brushed. Adrian moved through the room slowly. His shoes echoed on the floorboards. He stood in the kitchen, staring at the cracked tile, and suddenly he remembered his mother's hand stirring a pot, her fingers thin, her nails always clean no matter how hard life was. He opened a cabinet. Empty. He went upstairs. The blanket curtain was gone, but the pinholes remained in the doorframe. He stepped into the room Mara had made livable. The mattress was gone, leaving a faint outline in dust. The wall where Leo's drawing had been taped now held only a pale rectangle where dust hadn't settled. Adrian stared at that rectangle for a long time, then sank to his knees without meaning to. His throat tightened. He had come to demolish the house because he thought it was dead, but it had held people. It had held survival. It had held a child's drawing of a son with a smile. And now it held him. Alone, facing something he had avoided for years. This house wasn't just his past. It was other people's present. As he stood to leave, his shoe bumped something near the closet. A small box slid out from under a broken board. It was a shoebox, dusty, taped shut with old yellowing tape. Adrian's heart thudded. He knelt and pulled it out carefully. The tape tore with a soft rip. He lifted the lid. Inside were items that made his breath catch. A small toy car with one wheel missing. A faded photograph of his mother standing by the porch, smiling tiredly. A school certificate with his name printed in bold letters. And beneath it all, a stack of envelopes tied with string. Adrian's hands shook as he lifted the envelopes. The top one was addressed in his mother's handwriting. The paper smelled like old-time dust and faint perfume. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, and opened it. The letter wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a grand speech. It was simply his mother's voice on paper. She wrote about the house, about neighbors, about small kindnesses that kept her standing. She wrote about Adrian, about his anger and his dreams. She wrote about how she kept one room clean even when everything else felt broken, because she wanted him to remember that dignity wasn't something money gave you. And then she wrote one line that made Adrian's throat tighten until he couldn't swallow. Don't let success turn you into a man who cannot be reached. Adrian stared at the words. His vision blurred. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, embarrassed even though no one was there. He opened another envelope, more of the same notes written over months, maybe years. She wrote about missing him, about being proud, about being afraid he would never come back, about hoping he would learn that being needed wasn't weakness. Adrian sat on the dusty floor until his legs went numb. When he finally stood, he didn't put the box back. He carried it out of the house like it was fragile, like it contained something that could break if he walked too fast. The next day, Adrian called Nina and cancelled his lunch meeting with investors. Reschedule, he said. Nina hesitated. They've already moved it twice. She warned. They won't like it. I don't care, Adrian said, and then surprised himself with how much he meant it. He drove to Sellers Community Center and asked to speak with her. When she came out, she looked at him with calm curiosity. Something changed, she said, not a question. Adrian held up the shoebox. I found this, he said. In the house. Sellers' expression softened slightly. Memories, she said. More than that, Adrian replied. He took a breath. Sell, I need to know what I can do that helps without harming. I don't want to just pay for one apartment and walk away feeling like I fixed something. Because I didn't fix anything. I just delayed a crisis for one family. Sellers studied him. That's more honest than most people, she said. So what are you asking? Adrian looked down at his hands. I'm asking how to be useful, he said quietly, in a way that respects people. Seller nodded slowly. Then you start by listening, she said. And by accepting that helpful is not the same as in charge. Adrian swallowed. Okay, he said. I can do that. Sela began to give him small tasks, not glamorous ones, not things that made headlines. Things like helping organize donated winter coats, driving boxes of supplies to a family program, sitting in on a housing workshop and just watching. At first, Adrian felt awkward. He showed up in clean clothes and felt like a spotlight. People looked at him and guessed what he was: money, power, someone who didn't belong. He didn't blame them. He kept coming anyway. And slowly, the center stopped staring. Staff nodded. Families stopped flinching. Adrian learned where to stand without taking up too much space. He learned to ask, "What do you need?" and then shut up long enough to hear the answer. Meanwhile, Mara and Leo settled into the transitional room. Sela updated Adrian carefully. With permission. They are safe, Sela said. Leo sleeps through the night now. Mara is still tense, but her shoulders are lower. Adrian felt relief like sunlight. He didn't contact Mara directly, honoring her space. He didn't show up at the transitional building. He didn't send gifts. He focused on the process. 2 weeks passed, then 3. The apartment search was slow. Landlords wanted perfect credit, steady income, clean records. Mara had gaps in work from caring for a sick relative, then from losing housing. Sela advocated. Adrian offered to cover deposits through the program. Some landlords still refused, suspicious of any story that sounded complicated. Mara grew frustrated. Sela told Adrian, "She's angry. Not at you exactly. At the world, at how hard it is to climb back up." Adrian understood. Then came the meeting Adrian had been avoiding. The investors and board members who expected demolition to proceed. He walked into the conference room with Nina beside him. The men and women at the long table looked sharp, polished, and impatient. They spoke in numbers and timelines. They had already decided what mattered. Adrian listened, then cleared his throat. "The demolition is postponed indefinitely," he said. Silence fell like a dropped glass. One of the board members, a man with silver hair and a smooth voice, leaned forward. "Indefinitely," he repeated, as if Adrian had spoken a foreign language. "We have contracts. We have penalties." Another added, "We have a plan." Adrian felt the familiar urge rise in him to smooth, to convince, to control the room. But he remembered Sela's words. Helpful is not the same as in charge. He took a slow breath. "I'm changing the plan," Adrian said. The room reacted with disbelief. Questions flew. Legal consequences, financial impacts, reputation. Adrian answered calmly, not with speeches, but with facts. "The neighborhood needs affordable housing," he said. "Not another building that prices out the people who already live there. The numbers still work if we adjust. Lower profit margins, longer timeline. But it works." The silver-haired man frowned. "Why?" he asked sharply. "This is not charity. We're not a community service." Adrian's jaw tightened. He thought of Leo's cough. He thought of the swept hallway. He thought of his mother's letter. "Don't let success turn you into a man who cannot be reached, because the cost of doing nothing is human," Adrian said quietly. "And I'm done pretending I don't see it." The board argued. Nina watched Adrian with a mixture of concern and something like respect. Adrian knew this decision could cost him. Partnerships could break. Investors could walk, but for the first time in years, the thought didn't terrify him. After the meeting, Nina followed Adrian into his office. She shut the door gently. "You're really doing this," she said. Adrian sat down, exhausted. "Yes," he said. Nina hesitated. "I'm going to be honest," she said. "You might lose control of the project." Adrian looked at her. "Maybe," he said, "but I might gain something else." Nina's expression softened. "What?" she asked. Adrian thought of the house, the letters, the weight in his chest that was slowly turning into something steadier. "A life that makes sense," he said. A few days later, something happened that Adrian didn't expect. Sela called him, a voice tighter than usual. "We have a problem," she said. Adrian's stomach dropped. "What?" he asked. "Someone reported the old house," Sela said. "They saw people coming and going before Mara moved out. They said a child was living in an abandoned building. The report was delayed, but it's in the system now. An investigator wants to talk to Mara." Adrian's chest tightened. "But she's not there anymore," he said. "It doesn't matter," Sela replied. "They'll still ask. It becomes part of her file. It can create complications." Adrian's hands clenched. "Can I fix it?" he asked. Sela's voice sharpened slightly. "You can't erase it," she said. "This is where control will hurt. If you storm into offices and pull strings, it will look suspicious. It will make it worse. What you can do is support the process properly. A lawyer, documentation, a safe address, proof that Mara moved quickly when options existed." Adrian swallowed. "Okay," he said. "Tell me what to do." Seller gave him instructions, not heroic ones, practical ones. I need you to sign a statement that you own the house and that Mara was not harming the property, she said. I need you to confirm you paused demolition when you found out a family was inside. I need you to state that you offered assistance through our program. And I need you to stay out of the interview unless asked. Adrian felt frustration burn in his throat. He wanted to protect Mara. He wanted to keep strangers from probing her life. But Seller was right. Protection that became control would backfire. He signed the statement. He paid for a lawyer experienced in housing and family cases, through Seller's center, not directly. Then he waited. Waiting was the hardest thing Adrian had ever done. He was used to making calls and watching doors open. Now he had to sit and let a system move at its own pace. The interview happened on a Tuesday morning. Mara met with the investigator and Seller and the lawyer in a small office with beige walls and cheap chairs. Adrian wasn't there. He paced his office downtown, checking his phone too often, feeling helpless. Hours later, Seller called. It went okay, she said. Not perfect, but okay. Adrian exhaled, dizzy with relief. Is she okay? He asked. She's furious, Seller said bluntly. She feels watched, judged, like she's being punished for surviving. Adrian's throat tightened. Does she blame me? He asked. Seller hesitated. She's looking for someone to blame, she said gently. Because that's easier than feeling powerless. Adrian nodded, even though Seller couldn't see him. I understand, he said. 2 days later, Adrian received a message from Mara. It was short. Did you report us? Adrian's heart dropped. He typed back immediately. No, I didn't. I'm sorry this is happening. Seller told me. I signed a statement to support you, and I paid for the lawyer through the center. I haven't spoken to anyone else. Seconds later, a reply came. You brought attention. You came with a crew. You postponed demolition. People noticed. This is your world. Things move when you touch them. Adrian stared at the message. The words weren't cruel. They were true. He typed slowly. All right. I didn't think through the ripple. I'm sorry. I want to fix it, but I won't make it worse by forcing anything. If you want space from me, I'll give it. The reply took longer this time. I want my life to stop being a file, Mara wrote. I want Leo to stop being looked at like a problem. I don't want to owe you. I don't want you in and out of our story whenever it makes you feel better. Adrian's hands shook slightly. This was the boundary, the rule, spoken clearly now. He typed, You don't owe me, and you're right to say this. If I'm in your life, it should be because it helps you. Not because it helps me. I'll step back. Seller will handle everything. If you ever want to talk, I'll listen. He sent it and sat back, feeling the sting of separation even though he had promised not to demand closeness. For weeks, Adrian didn't hear from Mara. He kept working with Seller's center. He kept attending meetings about housing. He started pushing his project in a new direction, facing resistance and delays. He visited the old house only once more, to retrieve more items he had left there: old photos, letters, small objects that now felt like pieces of a self he had abandoned. One day, while clearing out the kitchen, he found a small scratch on the wall, half hidden behind peeling paint. He leaned closer and realized it was a mark from a height chart, pencil lines measuring a child's growth. He ran his finger over the lines. There was his name beside one, written in his mother's handwriting. Adrian, age 8. Adrian, age 10. And below that, a new mark in fresher pencil, lower, with a small scribble, Leo 10. Adrian's throat tightened. Leo had added himself to the wall, not to claim the house, but to say, I existed here too. Adrian stood there a long time, breathing slowly, letting the weight of it settle. Then he took a photo of the wall, not to show anyone, but to remember. As months passed, Adrian's life changed in small ways that didn't look impressive from the outside. He started leaving his office earlier. He stopped scheduling every hour. He took calls from Seller even when it wasn't convenient. He learned the names of people at the center. He listened more than he spoke. He also began to notice the ways he used control as a shield. In meetings, he caught himself trying to dominate to feel safe. In conversations, he caught himself offering solutions too fast, like fixing other people's problems might keep him from feeling his own. When he failed, he apologized. Short, clean, no drama. And slowly, something in him softened. Not weakness, not pity, just presence. Then, one afternoon, Seller called with a small, careful smile in her voice. Mara found an apartment, she said. Adrian's heart jumped. She did? He asked. Yes, Seller said. A small one. 2 rooms. Not perfect, but clean, safe, close to a school. The landlord agreed because Mara has steady work again. She got a job at a clinic, part-time at first, now more hours. Adrian exhaled slowly, relief washing through him. That's incredible, he said. Sella paused. Mara asked me to tell you something, she said. Adrian's stomach tightened. Okay, he said. She said. Sella continued. That she doesn't want to hate you, but she's still angry. And she doesn't know what to do with gratitude when it feels mixed with fear. Adrian swallowed. Tell her I understand, he said quietly. And that I'm happy she's stable. Sella's voice softened. She also said Leo still talks about you. She added. He asked if the house is gone yet. Adrian stared out the window at the city skyline, glass and steel. It's not, he said. Not anymore. A week later, Mara sent Adrian another message. Sella said you're changing the project. Is that true? Adrian typed back. Yes. It's slow, but yes. A pause. Then, why? Adrian stared at the screen. There were 100 answers. None felt right. He typed. Because I don't want to be a man no one can reach. He almost deleted it. It sounded too personal, too much. But he didn't delete it. Minutes passed. Then Mara replied with a single line. Meet us at the park on Saturday, 3 p.m. If you come, you listen. No speeches. Adrian's throat tightened. He typed back, I'll be there. I'll listen. Saturday came cold and bright. The park was small, surrounded by tired apartment buildings and bare trees. Children played on a worn playground. Parents watched with tired faces and coffee cups. Adrian arrived early and stood near a bench, hands in his coat pockets, trying not to look like someone waiting for judgment. When Mara and Leo approached, Adrian's breath caught. Mara looked healthier, still guarded, but her eyes were clearer. Her coat was still worn, but it fit better. Leo looked brighter, 2 cheeks fuller, postured less hunched. He carried a soccer ball under one arm. Leo spotted Adrian and hesitated, then jogged forward and stopped a few feet away, unsure. Adrian smiled gently. Hey, he said. Leo's eyes darted to Mara. Mara nodded once. You can say hello, she told Leo. Leo took a step closer. Hi, he said, then added quickly. We have a place now. Adrian's chest tightened with warmth. I heard, he said. I'm glad. Mara approached, stopping at a careful distance. I'm not here to thank you, she said bluntly. Adrian nodded. Okay, he said. I'm here because Leo asked. Mara continued. And because I don't want him learning that every adult who helps will later hurt. Adrian swallowed. I don't want that either, he said quietly. Mara studied him, then said, so I'm going to say something, and you're not going to defend yourself. Adrian nodded. Okay. Mara's voice tightened. When you showed up with that crew, I thought it was over, she said. I thought someone was about to take away the one place we could breathe. When you helped, I didn't know how to handle it. I kept waiting for the moment you would remind me you were the one with power. Adrian kept his face still, listening. And then the report happened, Mara continued, anger flashing. And even though you didn't do it, it still felt like your world swallowing mine. Like we were always going to be dragged into some system because we dared to exist. Adrian nodded slowly, throat tight. Mara's eyes glistened for a moment. I hate that I needed help, she whispered, and I hate that I couldn't protect him without breaking laws. Leo looked away, embarrassed by emotion. Adrian breathed slowly. I hear you, he said, voice quiet. Mara swallowed hard. Sella says you've been showing up, she said. Not for photos, not for praise, just showing up. Adrian nodded. Yes, he said. Mara's gaze sharpened. So what are you doing with the house? She asked. Adrian hesitated. I'm not demolishing it, he said. Mara's eyebrows rose. Then what? Adrian glanced at the playground, at children climbing and laughing, at parents watching with tired hope. I'm trying to turn it into something the neighborhood can use, he said. A small resource center. Maybe transitional rooms upstairs, if zoning allows. Workshops. A place Sella's team can work from. But it takes approvals. Money. Time. And I don't know if it will all work. Mara stared at him. Why keep it? She asked. Why not just build new? Adrian's throat tightened. He thought of his mother's height chart. Leo's pencil mark. The letters. The drawing of the sun. Because it mattered, Adrian said simply. To me. To Leo. And because tearing it down felt like erasing something I was too proud to face. Mara's expression shifted, the anger thinning into something more complicated. Leo looked up. So it won't be gone? He asked softly. Adrian shook his head. No, he said. Not if I can help it. Leo's eyes brightened. Then he tried to hide it by bouncing his soccer ball once. Can we see it? He asked. Then added quickly. Not inside. Just see it. Mara's head snapped toward Leo. Leo, it's okay, Adrian said gently. He looked at Mara. Only if you want, he added. And only outside. Mara hesitated, then nodded slowly. One time, she said. And we'll leave if I say. Adrian nodded. Agreed, he said. The next week, They met outside the old house. The street looked the same, but the house felt different, no longer a place of hiding, but a place of memory. Adrian stood with them on the sidewalk. He didn't open the door. He didn't step onto the porch. He let Mara decide the distance. Mara stared at the house, her breath fogging in the cold. It looks smaller, she said quietly. Adrian almost smiled. It always did when you went inside it, he said. Leo stepped closer to the fence. He pointed at the upstairs window. That was our room, he said softly. Mara's face tightened. She hugged herself. Adrian took a breath. I found something, he said, then stopped. But I won't show you unless you want. Mara looked at him warily. What? A box, Adrian said. Letters from my mother. And something Leo left. Leo's eyes widened. What did I leave? He asked. Adrian smiled gently. A pencil mark, he said, on the wall. Mara's eyes narrowed. We shouldn't have, she began, guilt rising. Adrian shook his head. It wasn't wrong, he said. It was human. Leo looked at the house like it was a living thing. Did you leave marks too? He asked. Adrian nodded slowly. Yes, he said. A lot. Mara stared at the porch. Her voice softened. You really lived here, she murmured, almost to herself. Adrian nodded. I did, he said. There was silence for a moment, heavy and quiet. Then Mara asked, Can I ask you something? Adrian nodded. Ask. Mara's eyes held his. When you left, did you think about the people who stayed? Adrian swallowed. His throat tightened. Not enough, he admitted. I thought about escaping. I thought about never being hungry again. And then I thought about staying away because coming back felt like failing. Mara's expression softened, not forgiving, but understanding the shape of his shame. Leo kicked the fence lightly, then asked, Do you miss it? His voice was almost afraid of the answer. Adrian looked at the house, at the sagging roof, at the broken porch rail. I miss parts of it, he said. I miss the feeling of being someone's whole world when I was small. I miss my mother's voice. I don't miss the fear. Mara's gaze drifted. I don't miss the fear either, she said quietly. Over the next months, reconnection happened slowly, the way real trust does through small actions, not dramatic moments. Adrian didn't become their savior. He didn't become family overnight. He became something simpler and steadier. A person who kept his word. He helped in ways that were boring on paper. He funded Salah's program to hire another caseworker. He attended city meetings and listened to residents speak about what they needed. Even when their anger at people like him burned hot, he didn't argue. He let it burn and stayed present. Mara allowed limited contact. Sometimes she answered messages. Sometimes she didn't. Sometimes she asked for help navigating a school form. Adrian would connect her to Salah or the lawyer and stay out of it. Leo started school. His teacher sent a note home about his reading improvement. Mara told Salah, who told Adrian. Adrian smiled alone in his office and didn't tell anyone. One afternoon, Leo sent Adrian a message from Mara's phone. It was a photo of a paper with a drawing, a house with a fixed roof, a big sun, and 3 figures standing outside. One tall, one medium, one small. No names, just shapes holding space for each other. Adrian stared at it for a long time. Then he typed back, This is beautiful. Thank you. Leo replied with 2 words. We're okay. Adrian exhaled, feeling something in his chest loosen. The project to transform the old house took time. There were setbacks. The city required inspections. The foundation had issues. The wiring was unsafe. Neighbors argued about what the house should become. Some didn't trust Adrian. Some didn't trust anyone with money. Some were tired of promises. Adrian kept showing up anyway. He hired local workers, paid fair wages, and listened when they told him what the house needed. He didn't choose the cheapest option. He chose the safest. He also fought his own impulse to put his name on everything. Nina suggested it once, gently. It could help with public support, she said. Adrian shook his head. No, he said. If my name is the reason people accept it, then it's not really for them. It's for my image. Nina studied him, then nodded. Okay, she said. Then what do we call it? Adrian thought of the street, named Maple Street, faded on an old sign. He thought of how a tree survives winter by holding still and waiting. Maple House, Adrian said. When the renovations were nearly finished, Salah invited Mara to see it. Mara hesitated. She didn't want to reopen wounds. She didn't want to walk into a place that had held her hardest nights. But Leo asked, and this time, Mara said yes. They arrived on a crisp morning. The house looked different, still the same bones, but strengthened. The porch had been rebuilt. The windows were new. The paint was warm and clean, not flashy. There were lights on inside, soft and steady. Adrian waited outside, hands in his coat pockets, nervous like a man about to be judged by someone who mattered more than any investor. Mara approached slowly. Leo moved ahead, eyes wide. It's nice, Leo whispered. Mara's face was unreadable, but her eyes shone slightly as she took in the changes. It looks alive, she said quietly. Adrian nodded. We kept the structure, he said. But we made it safe. Sela opened the door and invited them in. Come, she said warmly. Look, inside. The hallway was bright. The floorboards didn't groan the way they used to. The air smelled like fresh wood and paint, but also like coffee from a small kitchenette in the back. There were rooms for workshops, a small office for caseworkers, a children's corner with books and a rug with soft colors. Upstairs, there were 2 small rooms designed for temporary stays, nothing fancy, but clean, private, safe. Doors that locked, windows that closed properly. A bathroom with hot water. Leo touched the wall lightly as he walked, like he was checking if it was real. Mara stood in the living room, arms crossed, breathing slowly. People will use this, she asked, voice tight. Sela nodded. Yes, she said. Families. People looking for resources. Workshops. A safe place to start. Mara swallowed. Her eyes flicked to Adrian. And you're okay with that? She asked, as if still waiting for the hidden price. Adrian nodded. Yes, he said. It's what it should have been. Sela smiled gently. There's one more thing, she said. She led them down the hall to a small room with a simple door. Adrian's chest tightened. He had asked the crew to preserve something, carefully, without telling anyone why. Sela opened the door. Inside, the wall was framed behind clear protective glass. The pencil marks were still there, the height chart, the names. Adrian's name in his mother's handwriting, and beneath it, Leo's fresh mark. Leo stared, stunned. That's mine, he whispered. Mora's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled instantly, and this time she didn't hide it. Tears slipped down her cheeks, quiet and honest. Adrian's throat tightened. He spoke softly. I wanted to keep it, he said. Not as a museum, just as proof that people passed through here and mattered. Mara turned away, wiping her face with the sleeve of her coat, ashamed of tears. Sela stepped closer and touched her shoulder gently. Leo stared at the glass, then looked at Adrian. You kept it, he said, voice full of wonder. Adrian nodded. Yes, he said, I kept it. Leo's eyes shone. He looked up at Mara, then back at the wall. Can I add another mark someday? He asked. Mara laughed through tears, a sound Adrian had never heard from her before. It was small, but real. Maybe, she whispered, if Sela says it's okay. Sela smiled. We'll make room, she said. Adrian stood quietly, letting the moment belong to them. Later, as they prepared to leave, Mara lingered near the front door. She looked at Adrian, her expression serious again, but something had shifted. The anger wasn't gone. The scars weren't erased, but there was room now for something else. I still don't like how this started, Mara said quietly. Adrian nodded. I don't either, he replied. Mara swallowed. But you didn't disappear, she said. You didn't use us as a story and then walk away. Adrian's throat tightened. No, he said. I didn't. Mara took a slow breath. Leo wants to invite you to his school thing, she said, voice almost annoyed by the softness. It's not a big deal, just a little event. He's reading something. Adrian blinked, surprised. Only if it's okay, he said carefully. Mara nodded once. One event, she said. And you sit in the back. Don't make it about you. Adrian's mouth twitched into a faint smile. I can do that, he said. The school event was held in a plain room with folding chairs. Parents filled the seats, murmuring. Children fidgeted on a small stage. A teacher tried to keep order with a smile that held exhaustion. Adrian sat in the back, as instructed, hands folded, no suit jacket this time, just a simple sweater. Nina had offered to come, but Adrian said no. This wasn't a business thing. This wasn't public. Mara sat near the front, posture straight, eyes locked on Leo. When she glanced back and saw Adrian in the back row, she nodded once. A small permission. Leo stepped up to the microphone. His hands shook slightly. He looked down at his paper, then up at the room, eyes scanning, landing briefly on Mara, then drifting back to Adrian for a second like he was checking something inside himself. Then he began to read. His voice was thin at first, then steadier. He read a short piece about a house. Not the exact house, not the dangerous details. Just a house that was cold and old and then became warm again. A house that held people. A house that was just wood, but a place where someone could start over. Adrian felt tears sting his eyes and kept his face still, breathing slowly. When Leo finished, the room clapped. Mara stood, clapping hard, proud like a shield. Leo's eyes shone. He stepped down and ran to Mara. She hugged him tightly. Adrian stayed seated, as promised, until Mara glanced back and motioned him forward with a small tilt of her head. Adrian walked to them slowly. Leo looked up at him, smiling shyly. "You came," Leo said. Adrian nodded. "I said I would," he replied. Leo looked at him seriously. "Do you still want to knock it down?" he asked, as if still needing to be sure. Adrian smiled softly. "No," he said. "Not anymore." Mara watched them, something complicated in her eyes. "Let's go," she said, and the three of them walked out together, not as a perfect family, not as a neat ending, but as something real, people who had collided in a hard moment and then built something steadier from the pieces. Months later, on the day Maple House opened officially, there were no grand speeches. There was no ribbon cutting with cameras. Sella didn't want it. The neighborhood didn't need it. Instead, the door opened in the morning, and families came in quietly. A mother with a stroller asked for help filling out a housing form. A young man came in looking for job training. A teenager asked for a safe place to sit for an hour. A volunteer poured coffee into paper cups. Adrian arrived late, not wanting to be the center. He carried a box of donated books in his arms, the cardboard rough against his palms. He wore simple clothes. His breath came out in a cloud in the cold air. As he stepped onto the porch, the boards did not groan anymore. They were strong now, rebuilt, but the memory of the old groan lived in his bones. Inside, the hallway was bright and warm. The air smelled like coffee and clean wood. The sound of small voices drifted from the children's corner. Sella saw Adrian and nodded. "No fuss. Put the books there," she said, pointing. Adrian carried the box to the shelf and began sorting books quietly. His hands moved slowly, careful. He didn't rush. No one was timing him. No one was asking for numbers. Then he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Adrian." He turned. Mara stood near the doorway, a scarf wrapped around her neck. Leo stood beside her, taller now, cheeks fuller. They both looked rounded. Mara's eyes moved around the room. "It's busy," she said. "It is," Adrian replied softly. Leo stepped closer, holding something behind his back. He pulled it out, a small wooden plaque, handmade, edges slightly uneven. On it, in careful letters, it read, "Maple House," and beneath it, smaller, "You matter here." Leo held it up shyly. "We made it," he said. "In school, for the opening." Adrian stared at it, throat tight. He took it gently, fingers brushing the rough wood. "It's perfect," Adrian whispered. Mara watched his face, then said quietly, "You did something good. Not perfect, but good." Adrian swallowed. "I didn't do it alone," he said. Mara nodded, accepting. "No," she said, "but you stayed. That matters." Leo looked up at Adrian. "Can we put it on the wall?" he asked. Adrian smiled. "Yes," he said. "Let's put it on the wall." They walked together to a spot near the entrance. Adrian found a small nail and a hammer. He held the plaque while Leo steadied it with small hands. Mara watched, arms crossed, but her eyes soft. Adrian tapped the nail in gently. The hammer made a soft, solid sound, building, not breaking. When it was hung, Leo stepped back and smiled. "There," he said. Adrian stepped back too. He looked at the sign, at the warm hallway, at the people moving through, each carrying invisible weight, each seeking a place to breathe. Mara glanced at the framed height chart behind glass down the hall, and for a moment her face tightened, then softened. She was not haunted anymore, not fully, but less. Adrian looked at Mara and Leo, and he realized something simple and heavy. He had spent years chasing a kind of success that made him untouchable, because he thought being untouchable meant being safe. But safety without connection was just a clean kind of loneliness. Now, standing in the house he had come to destroy, he felt something else. The quiet, steady warmth of belonging, not because he owned the place, but because he was present inside it, because he could be reached. Mara adjusted her scarf and said, "We have to go. Leo has homework." Leo groaned softly, then smiled. Adrian nodded. "Okay," he said. Leo hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged Adrian quickly, a fast, awkward squeeze like a child testing trust. Then he stepped back and looked at Mara, as if asking permission. Mara didn't smile, not fully, but she didn't pull him away. She simply said, "Let's go," and her voice was softer than it used to be. As they walked out, Adrian followed them to the door. The cold air brushed his face. He watched them step down the porch and onto the sidewalk. He watched Leo kick at a leaf, laughing softly. He watched Mara's hand brush Leo's shoulder, protective without being panicked. Before they turned the corner, Mara looked back once. Her eyes met Adrian's. Not gratitude, not forgiveness wrapped in a bow. Just something steady. "Don't disappear," she said. Adrian nodded, feeling the words land deep. "I won't," he replied. Then they were gone. swallowed by the neighborhood streets, by life moving forward. Adrian stood on the porch for a moment longer, breathing in the cold air. He could hear voices inside Maple House, papers shuffling, a kettle clicking, a child laughing. He turned back inside, closing the door gently behind him, and went to help wherever he was needed, not because he was trying to prove anything, but because he finally understood the real gift he could give. Not money, not control, presence.